Yes, we're live, and I hope it's a good one today. I hope the connection's good. I'm out in the garage. I have company over this weekend. My cousin came over to visit. We had a good time. I actually sat down and did not come on and look at questions and stuff and answer them until this morning. So I actually took a weekend off somewhat, as much as I could. I did work the dogs a little, But so I'm out in the garage. So if let me know if it starts cutting in and out. It turns out last time I did this, it cut out for a couple people, but then once I saved it, you could watch it all the way through and there was no issues. But I'm in the garage because, like I said, we had guests over this weekend who are leaving hopefully not hopefully, but they are leaving within the next hour. And I don't want to disturb our talk. So we're out in the garage. I already said goodbye. I'm here with you guys. We got a topic. And listen, with these topics, sometimes I notice they're a lot easier once you understand them than they are to explain. So I'm going to try to explain something to you guys today that I think is very useful, very practical, hopefully less deep than the last one that I did. That one got kind of deep. I'm going to try to keep this one a little less heavy. But here we go. Without further ado, I'm going to say hello to everybody and thank you for joining. Swank Warren said, I got a new dog. That's exciting. That's exciting. Nothing more exciting than getting a new dog. Lots of work, lots of potential, right? Well, you're going to benefit from today then, because today we're going to talk about, this is all about getting your dog to behave how you want to behave, really, but more of the mechanics of how to do it. So the way I wrote it down over here so I could remember the concept of correct and then direct, and you got to bear with me because people mess this up, versus direct and then correct. Okay, so there's correct and then direct, blah, 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 and then direct and then correct. Sounds confusing, but bear with me. I'm going to give you examples. All right, so we got our dogs. I'm going to let you in on how I live with dogs, how I get dogs to understand the boundaries of my living room, the boundaries of the walk, the boundaries of of just living with me, what I like, what I don't like, and this is how it goes. We allow dogs, say I got a brand new dog into the board and train. Boom, here it is, it's in the board and train. It knows none of my rules. Does not know how to be respectful. It might not even know its commands. It probably doesn't. Some of them do, some of them don't. How am I going to start with this dog to tell him what to do? Like, how am I going to get this dog where it needs to be? This is how we start. When you enter Julie's Canine Academy, hello everybody. I'm just going to get a little piece out and then I'll say hi to you guys. When you enter Julie's Canine Academy, there's all these pre-existing rules already in the environment. The dog doesn't know it. And we allow the dog to explore and bump into these boundaries, which result in consequences, whether it's correction or punishment or some type of reward. But these rules already exist. I don't take the dog and say, hi, welcome to Julie's Canine Academy. Here's a notepad. I'm going to walk you around the premises. And I'm going to explain all the rules to you just so you know not to break them. Dogs can't do that. They don't have the mental capacity. Otherwise, we'd set them down and we'd say, read all the rules. And if you break them, here's the consequences. We can do that with humans. We can't do that with dogs. So what I do with this dog is I get the tools on it that I need and all this stuff. What's up? Morning, ACC dogs. And I let them bump into the boundaries. That's what we're calling it. They're going to bump into the boundaries. For example, there's a door. If the door opens and you go out, there's a boundary that you're going to bump into. And I'm going to take this example of the door and really clarify how we do it with dogs, how I teach a dog. How I teach a dog, this is what I'm doing all in one conversation. I'm teaching the dog what not to do. I'm teaching the dog what to do. And I'm also adjusting the attitude. Okay, I didn't write that part down, but I'm also adjusting the dog's attitude, which all that means is the way that a dog perceives their human in the environment. Usually dogs perceive it as I do whatever I want, and we go from there. This takes a dog and gives them permission-based kind of lifestyle mentality where they realize they have to go through a human to get the things that they want in certain situations, like a door. They can't just demand to go out the door and they can't just go out the door. So here we go. The dog shows up at Julie's Canine Academy, right? Doesn't know any of the boundaries. I am not in the practice of going and explaining the boundaries to a dog. It doesn't work anyways. These dogs are already bratty. That's not natural. That's not how nature works. Nature just gives you the correction and you learn from the correction, right? So this is how I do it. And there's multiple ways to do it. I open up the door. The dog goes out. I correct the dog for going out. But Josh, that's not fair. You didn't tell the dog that was one of the rules. Yeah, this is why I'm doing this, because dogs train me. Dogs train me, so I didn't come up with these methods or learn what works good by other people necessarily. The dogs let you know what works good, and this works good. So they go out the door. People have trouble getting attention from a dog, and they try to beg for it and shit. You want to get attention from a dog? This is how you do it. They go out the door, correction. They come back in. Hey, bud, what happened? I don't know. I want to go out that door. There was, what's going on here? Open the door back up. Go out, correction. I'm not talking to the dog much. They come back in. I guide them with a leash. Hey, what's going on? Reset, shut the door, open the door. I want to go out, but I'm not going to because there was a couple corrections. What do? They look up at the human. They look up at the human, and in that moment of them looking at me, that's them saying, how does this work around here? And I can say, let me show you. And that's the beginning of our relationship. And it happens in so that's the correct and then direct, which the dog doesn't know that conversation. It doesn't know how that's going to work. So that's, hey, that was wrong. And now that you're looking at me for direction, sit. If they know it. If they don't know sit, if they don't know sit, I'll literally just have them look at me and say good, just because they're looking at me, good. And then they're like, what do? And then I say break, and I guide them out, and they notice there's no correction. And I do that a few times, and they start to realize, okay, so I can't go out this door unless a human's offered, right? But what I didn't do, here we go. And I know you're listening to this, you think this isn't special, right? Let me go back to the door and show you what everybody else is doing, right? And I'm not saying other people aren't doing what I'm doing, they are. But this is where, if you're struggling, this is why. You say, I'm going to work on my dog's attitude and going out the door, and you go up, not you, but another version, which I've done, which doesn't work as well. The dog's taught me it doesn't work as well, okay? We go up to the door, and now we're going to teach first. I'm going to teach. I'm not going to let you show the boundary because, I want to be fair. So I'm going to struggle with trying to get you to sit because you're so excited to go out that door, it's going to be a mess. But I'm really going to work on getting you to sit or stay or something because I don't want you to go out the doors because that's the rules. The rules is that you don't go out the door. Well, that's going to be a fuss as it is. You're going to open the door, and then your dog's going to start breaking that sit or breaking that stay, and you're going to start correcting for that. So that's directing and then correcting, right? And you're struggling for attention. You're struggling for respect. The dog still doesn't know about the boundary of going out the door. And you're wondering why it takes you a bunch of time to do it. And even at the end, it's unreliable because the dogs always were wanting to go out the door. So that even if they do sit because they realize that's what gets them out the door, they're fidgety. Right? No, there's already rules, dog. This is how nature's set up. If you go out in the world, there's already things that are going to happen that are going to be aversive. You'll find them out when you bump into them. And that's how you'll learn. That's what I do here for the first couple of days. And that's how dogs, not only is their attitude adjusted, they start to have respect for me. They start to learn how to lean on a human for direction. And it makes everything easier because the dog's trying to pay attention. And I didn't have to use food to bribe them to. They just learned on their own. They can't figure it out. But with me, it becomes a lot easier. And we become a team. And then we work on the dynamic of that relationship and blah, blah, blah. And this is all from the first experience of stepping out the door. And that's the one I do the most common. Is just like, let me show you that there's boundaries around here and that you can avoid them. And if you look at me, I'll show you how. Okay? So even when a dog is fully trained up, I see this mistake of not correcting and then directing. They're just trying to direct. So let's say a dog's on place and you told them to go to a command. They're on place. They've already been trained. They're in your living room. This is common. This is what we see. And we have to try to beat it into people's heads not to do this. Okay? Even if the dog can be on place or the dog can be free roaming, whatever, it doesn't really make a difference. Somebody knocks on the door, the dog goes into a bad behavior. First of all, they break the place command if they're in the place command. That's already needs a correction, right? Just for breaking your command. But then they charge the door, which is a no-no behavior. That doesn't get corrected either. Instead, you hear the owner saying directions. Place, no, place, come, place. And then they fuss with their dog, and it's a mess, and then the dog may finally get to the correction. You might actually give the dog correction eventually, or not. You might just drag them back to the bed. and you failed to correct them for leaving the place bed, you failed to correct them for doing the naughty behavior of charging the guest, and you just went to directing. Direct. And all that comes down to is just talk. We want people to get into the mindset of correcting first. Take your time with it. There's no rush. Your dog charges the door. No. Go over there, give that correction. Settle them down. Place. That's the direction. It's not frantic. It's not like, place. No. Those people, those blah, 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 blah. That dog's not getting the message. So we correct, direct. Correct, direct. All day long, baby. Nope, don't do that. Do this. Nope, don't do that. Do this. Now, when would you direct and then correct? There is a time for that framework to direct and then correct. And that's for known commands. It's like if I'm using the commands and I'm trying to tell you to do something, that's me directing you and then correcting you if you don't comply. That's appropriate, right? So it's like sit. That's a direction, right? The dog doesn't sit. Correction. Sit. That's appropriate pattern. And that's great because you're asking the dog to do something and they're not. But if you're trying to stop a dog from doing something and then teach them what to do instead, you need to correct and then direct. And I know that sounds, sit. That's what Sabrina says, good dog. I'm like, yes, exactly. If you're using that many sits or that many command words in a row, you're doing it wrong. You ask once, you correct once. You ask again. They don't do it, you correct again. You see, and then what happens, the dog learns to just do it and not allow you to make it to the correction, and that they can escape the correction, and that they're actually in control of whether or not they get corrected. Once a dog is at that point, that means they're operant to our system. They understand that they're actually in control to a degree. They can control whether or not they get a correction. And that's a dog who then builds confidence within the program, and they're like, this isn't such a bad program because I understand it. And it's the same as like living in America. You're like, well, there are certain rules that I might not like, but you know what? It is a pretty fucking awesome place. So, and then you end up being all right with it, right? When you're a kid, you gotta learn all these rules while you're out there that kind of suck and don't make sense to you, but hopefully you eventually, stop worrying about it and just listen, right? To a degree. Once the dog does that, like Buddy today, Buddy's going home. That dog is happier than I seen him coming in. He's like, I get the program. I know how to live within it when needed, without issue. And it's not bad at all because now I'm on all these hikes and all these walks and stuff. I'm watching this dog, very proud of him when we're working together, likes working, and is enjoying his life. But he's well behaved. That's the full circle. But that's not how it is when you first start. When you first start, the dog's really not enjoying the fact that you're taking control. But you got to hang in there. Okay? So bumping into boundaries. We let the dog, this goes for every command I'm teaching for the most part, Like when I'm teaching the walk, I don't teach heel first. I teach what not to do first. So if I am directing the dog, if I'm suggesting that we're going to be walking together and I have the leash and everything, that pretty much, there's a rope around your neck and it's in my hand, that means we're walking, right? I don't need to explain, I don't need to name it or anything like that yet. Now the dog goes forward, starts pulling me, correction. It comes back towards my direction, goes the other way, starts pulling, correction. A couple of those, the dog's not running away anymore. They're kind of keeping a loose leash, but now they're kind of all over the place. They're behind me. No. Anytime they go to the end of that leash, correction. They go in front, they go back, they go to the side, where they end up within 5 minutes is somewhere around the heel position. Simply because that's the only spot that I didn't correct. And instead, every time the dog was there, I was like, hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing? This shaped the dog's behavior in that moment, and they end up on that side, which looks like heel. When you guys see it in the videos after the first session, it looks like the dog knows heel. We explain to you that they're just following me, because if they follow me, then they're not going to get a correction. And here's how it works. This was the light bulb moment for me and when it comes to walking a dog. And I never walked the dog the same after I learned this. And I learned this from the Keeler method, which is from William Keeler. I hope I'm saying his last name right. He was a famous dog trainer in the 40s, I believe, sometime around there. And he did a lot of work with dogs in the movies and also obedience and stuff, but like Disney movies and stuff. One of his things is in this book, the great thing is he was like, this is how you teach a dog to walk politely on the leash. You grab the leash, you put it on the dog, and you go out. He uses a field, but I do it. You can do it wherever. And he's like, you start walking in one direction with purpose. Like literally pick a tree that you want to go to so you have somewhere to go. You start walking with a loose leash. You're not choking the dog up to this, and trying to keep him in heel. It's a loose leash. It's like a 6-foot leash. The dog goes out in front of you because that's what they do. They hit the end of the leash, pop, and you turn in the other direction. Now the dog comes back and he sees you. Now it's all about the dog seeing you. The dog now sees you and then runs past you again, no longer seeing you, leaving your being with you, even though you're connected by this leash. They're going to hit the end of the leash, you're going to pop, and you're going to turn around in the other direction. Now the dog turns around after the correction and sees you walking in the other direction. So then it runs again. Eventually it learns, like, don't run past the person. And now, and what you get is a dog who starts wanting to hang behind you, because they say, if I can see him, then there's no way he's going to give me a correction, because it always happens when I can't see him. He turns away, and boom. So I'm gonna keep an eye on where you're going. And the way it works is that the reason why it works is because we're not talking to the dog. We're not saying, let's go. I'm going this way. You're not telling him anything. You're saying, if you can't hear me or feel me on the leash, you can't feel me on the leash because it's too loose. The only way to know where I'm going is to watch me. And now the dog ends up walking with you so they can see you, which ends up being slightly behind you. And they didn't learn that that's going to be a command in the future. They just learned, if I can see you, I'm all good, because you're not telling me when you're going to turn around. And this is what I call sneakaways. Now I'm going to try to sneak away from this dog. If it starts to get, it's hanging around me, but it's not necessarily pulling and running like that anymore. Now if it starts to sniff or something or veer off, I'm going to sneak away and correct it and then go in the other direction, to the point where the dog won't let me sneak away anymore. They're like, no, I'm keeping you in my sight. And yes, this is creating relevance. Yes, this is creating respect. Yes, this is adjusting attitude. Yes, this is going towards teaching heel, and all that all at once. All at once. It's all happening. And so what the dog ends up doing is trying to follow me. And now I'm praising, hey, good job for being here. And I step to the side and they follow me. Hey, good job. And they're starting to be rewarded for these behaviors, which is just encouraging them to happen again tomorrow. But all the other ones were discouraged with the correction, so they're less likely to happen tomorrow. And this is how we go. But what didn't I do? I didn't go out there and say, okay, today we're learning heel. Here's a pen and paper. This is all you need to know about the heel command. I'm going to explain it to you. And this is actually, yes, you want to hit the dog, you want to give the dog pen and paper like this, but this is the equivalent of training, trying to teach a command, trying to get the dog to care about it, which they don't give a shit, so you got to use food or some type of reward because they don't give a fuck about learning the sit command. It's boring. And then you're like, okay, so do we got sit or whatever, heel? We got the heel command? Good. Now we're going to go use it, and it all falls apart because they don't want to be there anymore. They don't want to be there. Like, yeah, I know it, but it's boring. So now you're constantly trying to correct them to be in the heel command. And, you might be able to get them to stay there, but they're always wanting to go out. This method of teaching the heel command, bumping in the boundaries, if you will, correcting and then directing, we took away every other option because we let the dog explore it. The dog realized that it wasn't as great as it thought it was. And they came to their own conclusion, because this is how dogs are. They're just like a 2-year-old. If they come up with it, then it's a great idea. But if you tell them to do it, then they're like, I don't want to do it. So all of a sudden, the dog's like, this is the spot to walk. Yes, that's where I wanted the dog to walk from the beginning. No, I did not tell him to directly. You understand? Once the dog starts understanding that in this situation, the walk, in order to avoid these corrections, I stay in this position, I start to name it. I start to name it, heel, and I start to do some drills with it and pattern it and have the dog feeling good doing it, and bumping into the boundaries a little bit more, just to really tighten it up, to show them exactly what's going on in the course of a couple more sessions. And then we bring it out to the world to proof it and teach him, when I say heel, this is the position you need to be in, and here's the corrections, which you're already familiar with. Because you know what they feel like full swing if you've hit the end of the leash already and stuff. I don't have to hit you full swing anymore. Now I can give you reminders and you listen because you have memories tied to this. Plus you've already been there and done that and you remembered it wasn't so fun, so the anxiety's low, and now you're just giving it up and healing and realizing it's not so bad because I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to sit and let you have free time too. But if I say heel, that's when all the rules apply. And that's why it's done quicker. That's why there's not 400 reps. There never is here that many reps. I don't think so. I wouldn't lie to you guys and tell you I'm doing 400 reps with each. I'm not. I'm giving very memorable moments. I'm teaching these dogs with very clear moments so I can bypass all that bullshit of having to do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reps. I just do very memorable ones, which is what nature does, which is why, nature's not going to give you 1,000 reps to learn something. You got to learn by paying attention, which means how do we make it memorable? It's got to affect the dog. It's got to affect the dog. Like traumatic things or very exciting things, you're going to remember these things. If a dog's running full speed and trying to pull me down and I turn and it gets a nice correction, that's memorable. I don't got to do that 100 times, you know what I mean? So it just takes away the option of all the bullshit. They bump into these boundaries and then they realize the heel's not so bad, or the place command's not so bad, or the down's not so bad, right? And it lands differently in the dog's head too. It's not a game when they learn this. This is another thing when you're going and hiring a trainer, okay? And I'm not trying to put down other trainers. I'm just trying to help people because there's a lot of silly stuff going out there that just simply doesn't work that well. It's just how it is. If you're teaching it and it's a party, so we're going to do some training. The dog doesn't behave. It's got all these bad behaviors. It's a brat. It's entitled. We won't put serious issues in this dog, right? It's just a bratty, entitled dog. Let's bring it to a class where it's constantly being bribed to do these commands, like as if this is going to fix the dog's attitude, right? Hey, if you sit, you get this treat. Or if you're down, you get this treat. Literally every rep, sit, treat, good. Sit, treat, good. Da, 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 da. Or like do a bunch of reps and then release and play ball and all this stuff. What happens if that's all you do? It's okay to start that way, but if you don't get off that stuff and turn it into like, this is non-negotiable and here's what happens if you don't do it and there is no reward for you doing it necessarily, it's just because I asked. If you don't get to there, what happens is the way the dog feels about the command while training, like you say, come, and they're like, I'm excited because this means food. And you say down, like, I'm excited because this means there's going to be a ball in 5 minutes. The way they feel about the commands during training is how they're going to feel about it when you try to use it in real life. So you try to throw a party while you're teaching these things. A week later, you're going to be trying to use it when somebody's at the door, like, hey, go to place. And there's no seriousness in those commands. You didn't train it in, so the association is just fun time. So your dog might go over to the place bed and be like, I'm on place, but not really taking it seriously and still in an uppity mood and all this, and it falls apart. It's not real stuff. It looks impressive. It can, because the dog can be very animated and really happy to do it, but it's only because they're going to earn something. That doesn't go well when you're trying to actually live with a dog. They need to do it because you said to do it. And they don't need to ask, well, what's in it for me? That's what makes it fall apart. So if you're wondering why we're not training that way, that's why we're not training that way. It's an easy way to train. It's very fun. It's not always easy though. You got to get the dog motivated for food and all that shit, and that's a pain in the ass. But it's not real life. If it's a game when you're training it, it's going to be a game when you use it, and it's not going to work, and you're going to think it's the dog's fault maybe, but it's not. Okay. That's why when we train our commands, we always make it around to, this is serious stuff. It's time to put the big boy pants on, the big girl pants on. Even if you're a puppy, it's 5 months, 6 months, you're starting to learn. This is how it goes around here, okay? This isn't a joke. These are commands. This is obedience, right? Those are heavy words. So now that I got that going about how to get a dog's attitude adjusted and how to really teach a dog, this is how I do it. I let them bump into the boundaries until they're not bumping into the boundaries anymore, and they look up at me. They always look up at me, and they say, what do I do? And then I start teaching. And that's when the camera usually turns on, and that's when you usually wonder, why is this dog giving him so much focus, and I'm not using a bribe. I'm not using a trade. I'm not saying, if you focus on me, I will give you this. It's simply, let me navigate you through the world, because obviously you tried on your own and it wasn't working and you realize that you need some help. And that is how our relationship is going to start, trust and respect. I hope that wasn't too confusing. It sounds confusing, but if you watch me do it or watch somebody do it, you can see it happen in front of your eyes in the course of 15 minutes. You can see that happen. You can see the dogs shift in the way that they think. How's the connection? It looks like it might be a little laggy, but we're doing pretty good. I do have a question here because we still got some time, and I do want to answer it, and it is one that a lot of people could probably relate to. It's a multi-dog house question. I wrote it down here. The basic thing is that there's a male dog and there's a female dog, okay? So we got the female dog, or the male dog is very alpha and very confident, right? And then there's the female dog who is a bit more nervous and insecure, okay? Here's where the problem's happening at home. She says that when the dogs are separate, they're much more relaxed. They're much more easy to deal with, okay? In all situations, including the walk, or I'm imagining people coming over and stuff. Separate, much easier to deal with. Together, absolutely insanity. They can't even do it, right? It's too much stress. The question is, how can I get it so that they exist together without having these big issues? So everybody got that? I'm grabbing some of my morning coffee. This is a very common thing we deal with because a lot of people have more than one dog. Luckily, the answer is not difficult, but the work is work. I'm not going to lie, it's work. So you start with each dog separately. And as tight as you think they are, you're not. So a lot of people don't understand what a real follower is when it comes. And I'm not going to get on here of how to create that, but that is one topic that I'm going to be covering. Your dogs definitely aren't 100% followers, and you might think that they're good dogs, and they're probably okay. They're probably okay, but somebody who has standards like me would probably take those dogs in and be like, even by themselves, they got a long ways to go as far as attitude and stuff. So it's probably not as tight of a ship as it should be individually, and that's why they're not listening to you together. Like that, you don't have that much clout over them. You don't have that much respect. You don't have that built up. You haven't had those conversations in ways that you need to, because I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter if there's 2 dogs or 40 dogs in a yard. If each one respects you, you say, hey, and they all stop what they're doing. They all do. So this is a sign of your leadership not being as strong as it needs to be to deal with these 2 dogs while they're together. So this is a relationship issue. It always comes down to it. This is how you fix it. I would start with the leader of the bunch, the alpha dog, like you were saying. I would start with your male. I would do them both separately, So it's like for a little while, this isn't going to be so much fun because you're going to have to work with them separately. So where's the other dog? It's in a kennel somewhere, not anywhere where we can see it. And we're going to be working on their attitudes separately, okay? Like put them in situations, start with a low level difficulty situation, and we're going to work our way to high level difficulty for these dogs. And here's the game. Here we are in the living room. We'll start in the living room and we'll do the walk in a second too. Here we are in the living room. I'm going to have somebody knock on the door, okay? What happens when somebody knocks on the door? Well, if he has any bad behaviors right off the bat that are obvious, then we're going to go after those, like barking and that kind of stuff, jumping. We're going to go after those, and we're going to correct him. We use one word, no. Remember, these are setups. This isn't waiting for the real thing. Too many people just wait for the real thing and then they lose. We're setting this up and we're putting this on the dog. The dog thinks it's real life, but it's a setup. It's a friend or somebody or a family member coming over. No, correct, go. Get out of the situation. Send them away. Calm your dog down. Let them calm down. Reset. The person leaves. Another person comes, right? Now, if your dog isn't jumping and barking, it's not so obvious when they're doing the bad behavior. So let me tell you what bad behavior is in my book. If the dog hears that knock and responds to it with forward motion, wrong. That door is not for you. That person is not for you. Unless I say, come here and greet the guest, wrong. See what level you got to bring it to? This is how you get respect from a dog. What are you doing going up to the door? That's not for you. What are you going to answer? You don't even got thumbs. You can't even talk. That's not for you. All the dog sees is a resource coming in the door and they want it first. That's all they see. So you're saying, no, this resource isn't for you. To the point where that dog hears that knock and it doesn't think about running up there, it doesn't think about anything. It looks at you to see how you're going to deal with the situation and what it should be doing. Okay? That's when you really understand what a disrespectful dog looks like, you're going to understand that even when you take away the jumping and the barking and the stuff that everyone complains about, the dog's being disrespectful constantly. It hears that noise and it runs to the door. That's it. That's not. I don't care if you bark or not. That's already breaking the rule. What are you doing? Go. It's not for you. So unless a human said, come over here and meet the guest, come over here and play with the guest, come see your family, don't come up, because that's a resource. And you're coming and trying to get it before I tell you to, right? So the dog gets that. So that will clean up your dog right there. That's one of the big ones. The next one is like, let's talk about, do we have any issues around food and stuff? Can I put food on the ground? Can I do this? And then this is a psychological thing. Can I have that dog out and take a piece of steak and put it on the ground in the kitchen or the living room, say, don't touch it, and then walk away. And the dog's free. He can walk around the kitchen. He can walk around the house. Don't touch that piece of steak. See? Now we know why our dogs aren't listening out on the walk. Now we know, because we're getting there. Because you ain't got that, more than likely. And I'm not talking sitting there saying, leave it. I'm saying one sound. Don't touch that. That's all I'm saying. Now, if you go to touch it, now there's a physical correction. Right? And then I'm going to do it again until you learn that when I say don't touch something, even when I'm not around, don't touch it. I want to come back. That's mine. This is how you level up. This is how you get the dogs really under your thumb and they listen. This is before you even get out to that walk with that boy, right? Can you have these conversations and he respects you to the point where it's like, it's a deep level of respect. Now we're going to go off to the walk and it's like, hey, he's good by himself on the walk. That's because you're keeping him good. I'll tell you that right now after reading this. It's because you're keeping him good. We're going to go push that boy if he's good. I'm going to go put him in situations where he's going to want to be a bad boy. And then I'm going to really get him in there so that mentality is creeping up. And then he's going to make a mistake. And then we're going to have a correction. And then I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again. I'm looking for the dog to fuck up. And that's something that owners aren't doing. They're looking to keep it safe. It's like, you want to go after other dogs? You want to do this stuff? Let's go find dogs. So that when you go after these dogs, I show you what happens. Right? And if you're being less confident because your sister's not here, I'm going to push it and really to get to the point where I can find some mistakes to correct. Because I want you to know, no more bullshit. You're going to be able to get your dog to mess up. No more pulling, nothing. And then, when you put him away, you take out old sensitive girl. And it's time to do the same drills. What happens when people come over? Nope, wrong, don't go up to them. Right? What happens when I tell you to go on place and I throw a squeaky ball by you? Nope, don't get off the bed. You're tightening things up. You're tightening it up separately. Right? We'll do all these exercises with her. We'll bring her on the walk. She's going to be the opposite end of the spectrum. She's going to be insecure. Right? So she might not bark or stuff, but we're going to push her to get her to do some bad behaviors. Right? I want to see where you are, where your holes are. I want to show you that this isn't okay to bark and all this stuff. And more importantly, I want to have enough respect from you in our relationship that when I say no, it doesn't matter what's going on, you stop because you understand because of all these other conversations, right? I know when my dad used to say no in a certain tone, my stomach would drop. That's what you need. That's what you need. If you're not getting that, you're not getting anywhere, okay? Or like, whoop, whoop, the cops are behind you, your stomach drops. If your voice doesn't do that when you disagree, you ain't getting anywhere, right? You're not going to be able to stop shit, right? So we do this with them separately. We work on them separately, and now we put them together. You start with the low level one, like the living room. It's easy to control your living room and make a small distraction to disagree with, and then it's easy to actually make it so it's a heavier distraction. When you go to the outside world, which is the walk, you want to have enough respect from living with the dog that you can actually carry some clout when you're out on the walk. So if you say no, they start to actually listen a little bit. Otherwise, it could really be a mess out there. And now what we're going to do, and you have to, listen, I'm not telling you how to punish your dog during this, but, I would look into bonkers, by the way. Bonker. Rolled up towel, just like the old newspaper, right on the snout. Works like a charm if you don't got money for e-collar training or anything like that. Now we're going to walk together, and these are setups. I can't explain to you enough. We're not going and waiting for organic experiences. We are setting a dog up. So it's like, hey, friend, I'm going to work with my dogs. Can you walk your dog by around the corner so that we can pass by so that they can fuck up so that I can show them not to fuck up because here's what happens. And you do it over and over and over again until you can't get your dog to mess up. And once you can't get them to mess up, obviously you put them together. And once they mess up together, you deal with that. And it's a lot easier because they all know why they're being corrected and how to avoid it. And you keep setting them up. Dogs come by until the dogs are making the appropriate choices consistently. Now we're going to put them in real life situations, right? I would definitely get this on e-collar and all that, but I'm not going to. We would be here for 30 hours if I was going to describe that process, right? So you do them separately and you set them up. I got another question last week about my dog is just not 100% there. He's pretty good most of the time, but he still tests the boundary, like place. Like example, he gets off place every now and then and tests my boundary. And what happens is she's waiting for the organic experience. So it's like you're not working on it. You're waiting for it to come up in real life, and then the dog struggles. So what you got to do, you identify where your dog's struggling. My dog has trouble staying on place. This is what you're going to do. You're going to put your dog on place, and you're going to start setting it up, improving it. Like, what happens when I squeak a ball and roll it by you? Do you get off the bed? Bink, don't get off the bed. What happens when when I go over and knock on the door? Do you get off the bed because you think it's a guest? Bink. You see, I'm starting with low-level distractions. Now what happens? All that's easy. I can't get you to get off the bed. Now what happens if I have a guest come over? Right? 30 hours sounds good to you. All right, maybe one day. 30 hours would kill me. So now guests are coming over. This is set up. I call the guest. I say, hey, we're working with the dog. Can you come over? And this is what's going to happen. The dog thinks it's real life. We keep setting them up. Don't let them hit a real life one until it's time, right? We keep setting them up until we can't get them to make the mistakes anymore, which doesn't take as long as you think. And then we do some real life ones, right? And this is how you get over that hump. This is what we do for you if you come here. We do it. When we say we're proofing the dogs, that means they know their commands, and now we're putting them through heavy levels of distractions. What else I would do, I'd take it to the pro level. You want to just add those distractions. You want to make those distractions eventually so high that it is next to impossible that they're going to run into those levels of distractions on a daily basis. So you actually proof it with even crazier, you have the people act a little bit more over the top eventually. You have things get noisier than they ever will be. And you just proof it to an extreme level so that, hey, a normal person coming through the door ain't nothing anymore. And then you're ready to move on. You've gotten past that hurdle. And anytime a hurdle comes up, you put your dog through that ringer to make sure that they know, don't mess with that boundary. And you know what? It works. It works. So we talked about bumping into boundaries, allowing the dog to explore the options and finding out what's off limits on its own. The techniques we use, usually it's an e-collar because that allows me to stay kind of neutral. I can just give the dog a correction for one of its choices without actually having to do much. I don't have to go up there and talk to it. And then once the dog looks at me and says, I want to learn how to get through the situation, then I start teaching, and that's how I create focus. That's how I create respect. That's how we do an attitude adjustment. That's how we get rid of anxiety. And and we start teaching the commands, and it all happens at the same time. It all happens at the same time because the dog finally looks up at the human and says, I need some direction. And it always happens. They always do. And then you say, okay. And then there you go. That's how they learn how to listen. They have to learn how to listen, And part of that is looking up at the human. You notice dogs are always down here, the dogs who don't know how to do it. You want them looking up to you in your eyes and taking direction. And guess what? These dogs who don't know any commands, if they're trying and they're giving you 100% of their effort, if you try to tell them to down or place or sit and they don't know what it means, they're going to figure it out so easy because it's them. It's very obvious gestures that the dog can get if they're trying. I have never, it's very rare that you meet a dog where you're trying to tell them to sit and they can't figure it out if they're trying. They can. But you need to get them into that mode where they are paying attention and they're trying 100%. And then once they are, all of a sudden, teaching them becomes ridiculously easy. But getting them in that mindset, we're not doing that. We're going out and we're saying we're working on sit today. Okay, so sit, nope, sit, and then, well, that's not working. Let's get some treats. Okay, well, now he's paying attention, so now I can get it. But that's going to fall apart because there's no seriousness being taught in those commands. And you try to use it in real life and the dog just breaks the fucking command, right? It doesn't care. It doesn't care, okay? So we answered a question. We talked about correcting and then directing. We talked about allowing dog to bump into boundaries. And we talked about attitude adjustment. This is something that has to be done. The dog needs to change the way it thinks. It can't just be told what to do. It can't just be taught the commands. Okay, it needs to be taught the commands in a way where it understands that your attitude is only going to get you in trouble with these commands. So drop it. And it gets rid of an attitude. So you can literally take a dog who knows nothing. You can train them up at a high level of obedience. You can adjust their attitude. You can gain the proper relationship all at the same time. It's not this. It's not, I'm going to teach all the commands first, and then I'm going to go and get respect. And then I'm going to go and, teach them how to use these commands. It's like, I just do it all at the same time. And it works with every dog I've ever worked with. You know, I just do it all at the same time, you know, and so watch our work. You'll see it. It's there. It's there for you to see it. I think that's about it. We're going to go in to see if anyone's got anything to say. This was Monday morning. A little hard to get going today because I'm not going to lie. I had family over and we had fun. We had a good time. So I was feeling a little like, man, I hope I can wake up on Monday morning and get to this live. And I did. A cup of coffee works, you know. So leave some comments leave some questions in the comments that you would like answered in a upcoming live, and I'll try to get to them. Sometimes I can answer them right in the comments. Sometimes I have to wait until the live because they're long. And also, if you just have topics that you would like to hear me discuss, you can also put that in the comments, and we'll try to get that stuff done. I have a bunch of topics to cover on my own already that probably is enough to last us the next 6 months, you know? So we're not going to run out of material, but it's always nice to see what people want to hear and what they reiterate. I hope this was helpful. We didn't get into any detailed stuff about how to do this stuff. It's more getting your mindset right, okay? You can do a lot with not teaching a dog any commands and just understanding how to correct for unwanted behaviors, and then kind of a very loose direction, which is like, you know, go away or come here. That's it. It's like, so you're doing something wrong, stop it and go away and relax. Or you're doing something wrong, stop it and come here. Right? So that's the basic thing that you need, and then you build on top of that. Okay? Happy morning. Have a good day. It's Monday. Get out there, get your work done, have fun. Got to remember to have fun, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning around the same time, 8 o'clock. Not sure what we're going to talk about yet. Maybe how to add structure into the dog's day. I don't know. I got a bunch of ideas, so let me know. Hit me up in the comments and tell me what direction you want to take, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Appreciate you guys.